Hello, Soul Sync family. I'm Jason Paul. How the devil are you? I hope you're keeping well. I'm recording this episode for you on Thursday today, and in a couple of days' time, I'm going to spend a week at the Arthur Findlay College to work on my mediumship. And I'm very much aware as well, I have to say this, I'm very much aware that I know that I need to do a mediumship update video on how my mediumship is going, because I did a part one some time ago, and there's been a lot of developments with my mediumship over the last few weeks. I do feel that I've come on a bit leaps and bounds. I actually did a reading this morning which was based on colour, and what I had to do with the tutor that I was working with was she had some colour cards, and I had to pick 3 colour cards and then do a soul reading on her, so tell her what I was feeling about her or anything that came to me through the cards. And I went through all about what I think is going on with her at the moment, her situation, what the cards told me, and it was right. I was so excited. And then she picked a card, and I did a reading through the card that she picked. Then what I did was a spirit reading using the 3 cards, 3 different cards that the spirit person told me to pick. And I did a medium reading using those, and it went so well. It was actually my best reading ever. And one thing I've noticed is that I seem to be incredibly sensitive to when it comes to colour. So I've ordered some colour cards to have a good practice with my mediumship. But I do think that colour seems to be working, and every time that I've used colour recently, it just seems to work for me so well. So I'm definitely going to have to do an update all about that. Now, in today's episode, so I'm putting out 2 this week. 2 because I'm going to the Arthur Findlay College, so there's none next week. But this week, I'm talking to Caroline Reilly. Now, her journey, and you'll notice the title of this episode is How to Confront and Deal with the Dark Aspects of Yourself Using Shadow Work. Now, I think shadow work is something that a lot of us want to veer away from, probably myself included in that. But in this conversation with Caroline, where her spiritual journey was ignited in 2012, she studied so many different kind of modalities. She is a skilled tarot reader, Reiki Master, and facilitator of shadow work and inner alchemy. In this episode, we also discuss as well the inner child. So it was a really candid conversation, this one, and it's one of those conversations, one of those episodes that leaves me thinking for some time afterwards. Every now and then I get a guest on, or quite often recently actually, where then I go away and I think. I actually did a recording today which was absolutely bloody mind-blowing. The guest that I had on, I'll go massively off topic, but I'll talk about it anyway. He came on to talk about a book, and it was honestly the best sales pitch for a book that it's made me want to read the book immediately. Let's just say that. The book answers so many of life's mysteries. But the crazy thing about the guest was he didn't actually write the book. He spent his whole life dedicated to kind of spreading the message of the book, and he actually went as far to track the author down, which was not easy. It was not easy. So, and the book is absolutely fascinating. Many of you are probably going to ask me now what the book's called. I'll tell you now. I'll give you a sneak peek, a little bit of a sneak peek of what's to come. It's called Abduction to the Ninth Planet. I'm reading it at the moment, and if you want to read it as well in advance of the episode, I think the episode you'll get so much from it. The book was also once known as the Fear Uber Prophecy, as well. So that's interesting. Anyway, without further ado, this is my conversation with the absolutely wonderful, I love this guest so much, Caroline Reilly. And you'll hear from me when I get back from the Arthur Findlay College. So lots of love, and I'll see you soon. So, Caroline, a massive welcome to the Soul Sync podcast.
Thank you very much.
It's great to have you here. So, there's a lot I want to talk to you about from the very helpful notes that you gave me. But tell us about you, because you had a profound spiritual awakening in 2012.
I did, yeah. So before then, I already started to search for the truth of various different. I don't know what I think. I was pregnant in 2010, and I remember looking at stuff about the World Trade Center, and so that was the first thing that I started to look at in terms of wanting to know the truth of what was happening in the world. And then I had my daughter, and then she was around about 3 years old. There was a few problems in the marriage. I was living in Tipperary at the time. And this one day on my birthday, 21st December 2012, I was sitting there waiting for the world to end, like the Mayan calendar said, not really. But something happened at home, and I realized that I needed to heal myself. And I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I started to look into lots of New Age information. I started getting all the secret books and doing creative visualization and affirmations and all that kind of stuff, and
That was
vision
my
boards.
first way into
Yeah,
it.
but
I
it was
was
all,
obsessed with The Secret.
yeah, but I found that it's actually all a load of bullshit.
Well, we'll go on to
For,
talk
for,
about that.
yeah, well, I mean, for me, New Age now is the new cage because what I realized much later on is that it doesn't also deal with every aspect of the personality, which is the dark side as well. So you can't have the light without the dark. So a lot of it I found was just kind of like this sort of wishful thinking. There was some good stuff. There were some good things in the sort of creative visualization. That there is something about. I do believe that the world is conscious, and that it responds to whatever we put out there. I do believe that, but I think there's also many other elements to it. Anyway, we'll get back to New Age. I was looking into New Age stuff. And then I had a dream one night, and the dream related to a documentary I'd seen on Carl Jung. And I heard about Carl Jung through someone that I admire very much, and he has a podcast called Unslaved. His name is Michael Tsarion, and his work has really helped me through my journey. Anyway, so I did this course in Jungian psychology, and I learned about the unconscious, the shadow, how dreams are the psyche's way of making itself known. And so I started making a lot of art, and then I went on and did had an art exhibition, which was all about my shadow. So will I just explain a little bit about what the shadow is? Because I am now a shadow work coach
Please, I've got
since all
so
this
many
happened.
questions already. I want to talk about the law of attraction. I want to talk about dreams and what you were talking about with Psyche. But yes, please continue with the shadow.
So the shadow is the unconscious, the unknown, repressed, denied aspects, and sometimes and unknown aspects of ourselves. So it's the part of us that we repress, that we don't know about, or that we do know about but we don't want to admit to. It's the times that we're bitter, jealous, rageful, sinful, manipulative, jealous. It's all of those negative personality traits that we try to hide, that we don't want to show the world. And so the shadow is like the place that we hide all of those things. And so in Jungian psychology, he teaches that once you can bring those more negative personality traits to light, and you can understand where they come from, and usually they come from complexes and fears and trauma and something that happened in childhood. But once you can get to understand those darker aspects of the personality, and you can integrate them into your full personality, you become a much more well-rounded individual, a much more authentic way to deal with the world, and a much more authentic self-expression. And so the shadow became a really important aspect of my work. I didn't know at the time that it was going to be my work. It was just a course that I did, and it's something that I loved, and I carried on researching it. And since 2019, I've had an online presence. It's kind of, it's been cut down and then brought back up again, and I had a baby in between. So so shadow work is a really important aspect of my life, and it's a way to kind of always be self-reflective, and there are tools within it to help us to deal with life's inevitable challenges, because we're always going to have problems that come up. But it is a way of us to sort of take off the social mask and to really be who we are, and a lot of people are actually quite scared of doing that.
What does the
I think.
process look like? How do you, first of all, identify these things?
Well, I mean, there are indicators to notice your shadow, and I've mentioned some of them. If you think about, the times that you have been manipulative, I say you, everyone has been manipulative, jealous, rageful. It's the unexpected outbursts of rage that come up. I recently told a receptionist to shut up. That was my shadow, because I got £100 fine, and I felt like I had every right to tell this woman to shut up. But actually, when I got down to it, and I was telling a friend of mine, you know, I
Mm,
said shut up to so and so, and I was a bit sort of judgmental about someone in the restaurant, and they said, well, hang on now, this is actually your shadow, and what's really going on? And then I started to talk, and then it was like, okay, so actually, it's not about them, it's not about the woman in the restaurant, it's not about the woman that I told to shut up. It was actually that there was something else that I was really angry about, and so you find that whenever there is any of those sort of more negative personality traits, and I say negative because they're indicators. They're indicators that in some way there has been a lack of love, or that we have had our needs unmet, or that we have had our boundaries violated, or that there is something that needs to be looked at. And with any kind of emotional trauma, it doesn't go away, as Freud says. It stays with you, and it shows itself in uglier ways. I mean, there's like quotes that say, if you don't heal yourself, you'll be horrible to your partner, or you know,
mm,
you'll bleed on the people that didn't hurt you, or something like that. There's this kind of idea, and it's true. And we all suffer trauma, some more than others. But you know, I don't really like the word more, because everyone's trauma is their own. And I mean, even if you imagine a child that has to go into childcare, they cry for months, they cry for, you know, days, months, and that's a trauma in itself. In fact, even childbirth is trauma. You know, the act
mm.
of being born is, you know, is traumatic, and
Well,
it's
I can understand why when you come out to this world at the moment.
I know, well,
Where am I?
there's
What am I
that.
doing here? Why am I?
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it.
It's so interesting because as you're talking, obviously, naturally, I'm starting to now think about some of my, you know, maybe less savory personality traits, and I do think that I can understand where they came from. Recently, this isn't about me, so I don't even know why I'm talking about this, but I ended a relationship that I was in because it highlighted to me many aspects of myself that needed healing. And I felt to myself that, is this conducive? And it just put a massive floodlight on everything. I don't know where I'm going with this, but
Well, no, it's an interesting point, because well, our relationship, the intimate relationships that we have, especially, and also relationships with our parents, all relationships, they show us what's happening inside of us. To some extent, the outside world is a reflection of the inner world, and I say to some extent because I don't believe that's all. I don't believe that like let's just say if you were in, let's just say, an abusive relationship, that's not only because of you, although I do believe that would be, it would mean, it would indicate that there's something vibrationally that's attracting that. However, we are all, you know, we are all doing that, and so to some extent it's like people will come into my energy field, and whatever they're doing, I might think, okay, well, what am I attracting? But also, what are they attracting, and what are they giving out? Because energy is reciprocal. You know, we
mm,
transmit and we receive. And so the difficult thing in this kind of inner work is that when you start to self-reflect and you start to take accountability of your own actions, you can sometimes take accountability for everyone else's as well. So there has to be a real balance, and it's a balancing act to really understand the truth. And with shadow work, you're really looking for the truth of a situation. First of all, you're looking for the truth of yourself. What is my truth? You know, is it me or is it them? What do I need to change? What do they need to take responsibility for? So there is this kind of, this is how you need to, not you need to, but this is the great work. This is the
you
great
can
work of
get
the
so deep
alchemist.
with this, can't you, as well? Because
Yeah.
it is, you know, when you start saying about your actions, it's obviously your perspective and your world, and you can go so deep with this, can't you? But it's funny because when you were talking again, I was in an abusive relationship when I was in my early 20s, and I do understand how I looking back may have attracted that,
Hmm.
because that was fueled by bullying at school
Hmm.
and a lack of self. You know, I was craving love and acceptance, so I was willing to just, well, you know, overlook probably a bazillion red flags.
Well, this is the other thing as well, and this is what that relationship was showing you, was your unhealed parts of yourself,
Mm.
and so from that you must have also learned that you need to then have more boundaries. That what did you accept that you won't accept anymore,
Mm.
and also, I mean, if you wanted to go really deep into it, you would probably see that there would have been some reflection of the relationships you would have seen as a child. You would have seen some, because we don't go into our relationships as an adult without there being some familiarity, especially in the first relationships or the first few relationships, until you've gotten to that point of really knowing yourself very, very deeply, and putting yourself, I guess, putting yourself first, having the right boundaries, knowing what a good relationship looks like. And I think that at the moment our generation is starving of that information, because we don't have the role models to show us what a good relationship looks like. Most of us didn't have that. We don't have the wisdom of the elders at the moment. I feel like our generation we are training for that role, and the only reason why we can be in training for that role is because we've got the internet. We have access to information that our parents, grandparents, etc., for how many generations didn't have.
You make a really interesting point there, about elders, and if you look at, yeah, well, I think if you look at young men, for instance, at the moment, that Eastern model of looking up to the elder, you respect the elder because you appreciate that they're wiser and they've had that, life experience, and that's kind of ingrained in kind of a lot of that Eastern tradition, isn't it? But I guess now the problem we've got is, you shove a tablet in front of a child when they're 3 or 4 years, well, probably even less than that, as a sort of pacifying device. So they're getting
Mhm.
influences not just from the parents who are glued to them, but at a very young age, they're not really knowing, okay, I'm getting this information from here. They're not looking within themselves ever, because I'm sure I'm
Oh
not
yeah,
telling you
no,
anything that's, a surprise to you. I'm sure you've had these reflections yourself.
absolutely, yeah.
Mm.
Well, we're all completely distracted. I mean,
Mm.
even let's just say, if I didn't have any social media, just the bills, and
Mhm.
like to go into a gym now, you need to have an app. You need to download the app. You need to spend time deciding how you're going to use the app. So everything takes time. There's just so many distractions and bills to pay, and the cost of living, blah blah blah, that there's too much to keep us away from ourselves. And the other big thing that we have now that we never had before, which I think is playing a really big role in, and this is a different subject, but it's kind of separating men and women from liking each other, or loving each other, or being kind, is porn. So, and
Mm.
I think actually that porn is a really damaging thing, especially to young children.
Mm.
And like the sex education that they're learning in school now. I know we're going off on a different subject, but
No, you do with this, but you go
yeah,
down
but
rabbit holes.
you do. But yet year five, which is they're about, I think about 9, 10, they start
Mm.
learning about, I think it's anal sex and stuff like that.
Oh, what
One,
age?
yeah, they are.
What
Yeah,
age is
and
that?
this is year five, I think, is age
Oh,
9 or 10. They learn
oh.
about that. I heard that there's like a lesson plan where children can go and ask their father about ejaculation. And this is like the new, I don't know what they call it, PSE or something, a personal social
Mm.
education or something. So what I'm saying is that they're pushing it in schools. They want children to learn about sex. They're under the umbrella of it's good that they understand these things. But I think we're actually taking away their innocence, their childhood to some degree. And then if they have got a tablet, they can just go in their bedrooms and just look whatever they like anyway.
Yeah, it's such a scary time. You have a 13-year-old. I don't
I
have
do, yeah.
children. How, knowing what you know, with the um high levels of wisdom that you possess, what's your parenting style? Do you allow Have you allowed what? How do you navigate this complexity?
She's 13. She does have a phone on her. She has it
Mhm.
for about 2.5 hours per night. That's what we've said. But even that's quite a lot.
That is,
And
well, that is quite a lot, but I suppose compared to their friends, that, you know,
it
I'm
it
sure
does
her
it
view is probably that it's not very long at all.
no. Well, yeah,
Yeah.
well, that's what she would say. Um, but that's the rule that we've come to. But yeah, it's difficult. I mean, the most that I could do with her, and I offered for her to be homeschooled. She said no, she didn't want to be homeschooled. She's got loads of great friends in school, so she goes to school. What I do is I teach her about using her own moral judgment, and so like with the school teachers, to be respectful to them, but also to understand that just because they're in that position doesn't mean that they know what's right. And so to use her intuition to decide whether or not she feels that the adults around her are right or wrong. Because also I've worked in schools. I've been working with children for over 20 years now. And I know that there's a lot of people working with children who they don't have any sort of good critical thinking skills. They just regurgitate what they're taught to teach children. And I
Mm.
don't necessarily agree with things that they're taught to teach children anyway. So that's how I do it. And also I show her things that are happening in the world as well. I try to make her as aware and as conscious as I can.
I think they need to teach intuition in schools.
And yeah,
You know,
critical thinking.
yes, I never did very well at school because, well, one, I went to a dump of a school. It should have just been shut down immediately. And secondly, I just don't learn in that. Here's a textbook, try and digest it. I'm
Hmm.
a thinker that I want A, B, C, X, Y, Z. I don't want the middle letters. I can't concentrate on them. Um, Moving back to what you were saying about the law of attraction, what's you, because I have talked about this book on the show, mainly from a perspective that I do believe in manifest being able to I believe that if we're on a positive frequency, like does attract like, but I have now changed that I must walk along and say thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you 100 times because because that in itself is not grateful because I'm getting sick of saying thank you. To bring this back to you, what's your view on this all then?
I've read this really great book called Awaken the Immortal Within by a guy called Jason Brashears, who has an excellent mind. And he talks about, I mean, and his version of his idea of this version of reality seems to me to be the most it just resonates with me. He says that this is a construct, that there are certain rules here that we have to live by, and that the universe or the world or whatever you want to call it is conscious. It responds to us. That there are ways that you can create, but it is about frequency and light. It is about that, and we do attract in that way. However, other people are also transmitting and receiving information too. And so if let's just say I'm all light, love and light, whatever, and then this dark person comes to me with a smile on their face, so I believe them, but their darkness is actually taking from me. So at that point, I don't. Yeah, so they've got theirs, but they're affecting me as well. So I mean, what I could do is I could just stay within the light and but then cut that person out, and that would secure me. But very often we don't do that. So sorry, yeah. So I'm getting
I'm
confused.
asking you a very, I guess, okay, you, a simpler way to perhaps frame this is you want to manifest something.
Hmm.
What is your recipe for doing that?
Okay, that's the best way. Thank you.
Is there a cosmic ordering system that you possess?
I think, well, definitely you have to have the vision. The vision needs to be there in place. And you do need to feel like you already have it. I do believe that too. But the action is also important. So you need to then start to make the action. And one of the biggest things that that book says, Awaken the Immortal Within, is act as though you are and you will be. Act as
I
though
can
you
relate to that.
Yeah, act as though you
Yeah.
are and you will be. And so you have to believe it, not just believe it, oh, I'm going to believe it. You have to really walk that path. So let's just say, so I've been reading tarot since 2013. And I stopped reading tarot for a really long time. And I recently started doing it again. And I'm doing it quite a lot now. And before I did it recently, I started thinking, is that really in me? Do I really want to do that again? Is that for me, sort of thing? And I remembered Jason Brashear saying that, act as though you are and you shall be. And it's just taken off for me.
Why
It's
did you
just been
stop out of
working.
interest? You don't have to answer, but
I don't
why
mind. I
did you
don't mind
stop?
interest. I don't mind stopping. I guess it was just that there are lots of things. I moved from Tipperary back to London again, and then I moved
Hmm.
from London back to where I am now. So there were lots of things in my life that took a lot of time and energy,
Oh,
and
so
I
the
s-
cards didn't disappear. It wasn't that you put them in a cupboard and said, right, that's it. I'm not getting them out now. It was the more
no.
from a professional setting.
It was that there were other things. I mean, I always kept my cards, and I was always reading for myself.
Okay,
I've
that's
always
what I was
continued
getting
to
at.
read. So I read when I was living in Tipperary a long time ago, and then I did a bit of reading over here, and then we had lockdown, and then I had my baby, and so then recently I started again.
Moving to what I honestly is fascinating the things that we're talking about. Actually, just on that point of believing it, because I do think this is a
Hmm.
valid point for people actually. When
Hmm.
I left the police, well, because I was a police officer, a whole other subject.
Hmm.
And I took an entry job in recruitment, didn't know what the bloody hell I was doing. Promised training, given no training, but anyway, that's another story. But I used to look in the mirror every single day and say, "I'm the best London recruiter. I'm the best London recruiter," and it was like fake it till you make it. And then I did that so much that I started a business because I'd saved enough money. And then again, it's going to do this, going to do that, and it was almost like I actually believed it. I
Hmm.
did, and it did come true. So, but then what I did was I started replacing gratitude and vision for worry, and then the wheels nearly came off, and it all nearly closed
Oh,
down and fell flat. But then again, I got the vision and managed to get myself out the gutter, and it went good again. I'm one of these people. I have to learn the hard way. I learn nothing the easy way. Everything's the hard way.
it's the
Um,
best way.
it is well. I would say I've never made the same mistake twice, but I'd be lying. Sometimes I have to learn the really hard way. But
It's character forming.
well, it is. Yes, it is. Which is probably what gives me a lot of credentials to talk about a lot of this
Mhm.
stuff because of the fact that I've probably had a few dark nights of the soul. No more of those, though. No more. Um, Going to what you were saying about dreams. What are dreams in your belief? Is it
Oh,
my
that's
imagine? Well, again, I'm
That's
asking a very
it's a
deep
very good
question.
question. I'm just wondering if I can answer it. What I can say about dreams, because I studied a lot about Carl Jung's dreams and his sort of like post-Jungian, so people that he worked with. There's a lady called Marie Louise von Franz, who he worked with. But anyway, one of the biggest ways to describe what Jung would say is that the unconscious telling you something that you don't consciously know. Okay. So, but the thing is, I wrote an online course about dreams, and so I tried to put everything together that I knew about the dream world. But I was at a bit of a fight within myself, because in the last few years, I've realized that for me anyway, there seems to be various different levels of dream. And I've got a couple of books here. And they're about astral traveling, and I haven't read them yet, but they're on my list of things to read, because I want to try and find out more about astral travel, but also about the dream realms, because I've got a feeling that there are various different types of dream. So there is, let's just say the this is just my theory. There is the traditional dream, which is the unconscious trying to tell you something you don't consciously know. And then there seems to be the kind of dream where you go to sleep and you've been at work. You wake up and you know that you've been doing some stuff. You don't know what you've been doing, but you know you've been busy.
Yeah.
And then there are the darker, the lower realms, which is the nightmare. And anyone will know that if you're stressed in your conscious daily life, you're far more likely to end up in the lower realms, where the nightmares happen. And it's like that's where the fear can take you. But really and honestly, I do believe that that the main encapsulating all of those dream realms, if that is even a thing, is that is the place where we came from, where we're going. It is something like infinity. If for me is the dream realm. That's what I would say. But within that, I think that there are various different structures. One last thing I'll just say about this is that in the Muslim religion, Angel Gabriel came to Muhammad, and the story goes, because he was crying because his wife had died and his family had died. The story goes that Gabriel came to him and he ascended the seven realms of heaven until he got to God, and that's where God instructed him, blah blah blah. Now I'm not a religious person, but I do think that there are nuggets of truth within all of the religious text in parts, and even if it's not true, there is something archetypally right. There's something that resonates with me about these levels of dream states.
I'm starting to become of that belief as well, that there's nuggets in religion. I was even listening to something earlier where a lot of religions, they give you nuggets. God is everywhere, but then it's you know, I could never imagine reading, and I probably should read the Bible from the start to the end, because I'm sure there's a lot of nuggets within it.
I've heard that the Book of Enoch is quite good. I mean, the thing is with the Bible, I think that first of all, it's been tampered with so much that there's a lot of untruths in it. But
Yeah.
the parts that you might find that are true or have got some truth in them, they've been written in such an allegorical way. So that most people won't actually understand the meaning. So there's a lot of symbology in there.
Yes, that's that you've described that much better than me. That's
Yeah,
yeah, symbology.
there's a lot of symbolism in there, and there are archetypal ways in there. So there are lots of things online that you'll find that kind of deconstruct the Bible. And one good thing to look into is astrotheology. Have you heard of astrotheology?
No, I've not heard of it.
Astrotheology is how, oh God, how do I describe this?
I'm asking
I
a lot of you at 9:30 at night.
yeah.
You've had to explain a lot of things here, and I must say, you told me that you've just put your 2-year-old to bed. That's been problematic. I think you're doing very well, actually. So
I'm going to find a way to describe theology. The concept of astrotheology is essentially a concept of recognizing the divinity of the physical universe around us, of nature and of earth, as the earth is one such body in the womb of the goddess we now call space. Okay, so it's the alignment of the stars and the heavenly bodies with what's happening on earth. And if anyone is interested to look into this, in more detail, you can look into Jordan Maxwell. Jordan Maxwell is a great he's dead now, but he's a great talker on astrotheology. And the other great guy is a guy called Santos Bonacci. His information on astrotheology is also excellent. I actually started with him in terms of my my spiritual sort of development.
I think that's true. Honestly, I've got a full page of a notepad already. Very, very interesting. Um, What's your kind of, because you know a lot, you're very wise. What's your spiritual routine? Do you have certain rituals that you use?
My spiritual practice um is oh, I'm going to say, well, I do a lot of Reiki. I do, yeah, I like to do Reiki. I sometimes do small rituals with candles, cord cutting if necessary. I use my cards, my tarot cards, my oracle cards. Um, I try to think in the night before I go to sleep. I try to meditate as much as I can. More lately, I feel that my intuition has gotten pretty good again. So I'll just tell you this about when I first had my awakening, when I just before I did my Carl Jung course, uh, I I did Reiki level 1 back then, and then I had Kundalini rising. So have you ever heard of Kundalini?
I have, yeah, I have.
Yeah. So so I
I
ha
oh, just sorry, go on, tell us.
so I had this like this serpent energy in my back, and I had psychic abilities at that time that were so pronounced that they were like intrusive, invasive in my day-to-day life. And not long after, well, about a year or so after that time, I felt like I had this very dark presence with me. So I had this psychic attack, this not sure what, and so I had to work quite hard to end this, this whatever it was, this energetic thing that was close by, and I did manage to do that, and that's probably part of the reason why I just decided to just not do the tarot for a while. That's another reason why. Um, and then once I kind of understood more about energy and I guess esoteric wisdom as well, then I did the level 2 and level 3, and but yeah, so what I wanted to say was that so I did have this kind of this intuition and psychic ability that was really strong back then, and then I stopped it, and then it seems to be coming back in a much more gentler way, which is really nice. Um, a friend of mine recently gave me some information on the Akashic records,
Hmm.
and I've started to tap into that, which has been quite useful for me. But as you know yourself, I mean, can I ask you what's your spiritual practice? What do you do?
Um, I'm increasingly needing to spend time in nature. I'm realizing that I've always been sensitive. Like noises really affect me massively, and I think spending time in nature is a big one for me. I am really trying hard to sit within my own power more. But
What
it's
does that
taken
mean? What
we
does that
were
mean?
my understanding, and I must admit, I've been getting very fed up with trying to understand the difference between meditation, and I'm starting to understand now, but I'm trying to sit within my own energy or soul, or I haven't quite discovered what word I feel most comfortable with. People seem to keep saying it's sit in the power, but at times when I'm sitting in the power, I'm not feeling particularly powerful. Um,
Do you know, I think that there are too many rules, and I think that
there are.
we do try
Yes.
to label everything, but I think well, look, over the past how many years since I started 2022, it's been what 12 years that I've been doing all this. What I've realized is that there is no right or wrong way. There's only your way. It's only like
Mm.
you close your eyes and you're in your head, and that's where it is. There's nowhere else. I think that we're all kind of expecting this sort of transcendent experience or something like that, but actually, just to have those moments of just being kind of quiet and still, nothing might happen then, but then you might be able to deal with something in your external life a lot better. I think that there's a
Mm.
lot of well, a bit like
Expectation.
expectation, but a bit
Yeah.
of spiritual superiority as well in terms of like talking about it and making it sound fancy. That to me is new age. So for me, I'm really just about just the, I guess, more authentic. It doesn't have to be this or that. There are good ways to describe some things, like creative visualization is a great word to use. But you know, it's just you just sitting there, thinking stuff. You know,
I
it
am
doesn't.
doing it better. Do you know one thing I've really started trying to do recently? And have you heard of the hemisync tapes?
I've heard of it. I don't know what it
Yeah,
is though.
it was basically the. I'm going to do an absolute hash job at trying to explain this because it's going to be riddled probably with me just recounting it the best I can. Basically, the US government commissioned an institute many years ago. I think this is back in the 60s to commission a report
Hmm.
into, and it was a very classified report into exploring consciousness and what is consciousness. And basically, it's all about binaural beats. So, this institute, a very well known institute whose name I've now forgotten, produced these tapes, and there's about 12 of them, and they basically walk you through. Like tape number one is about just understanding it and having an experience. And honestly, it's put me in some of the deepest meditations. The tapes are quite funny because they're almost like instructional tapes, which are made for like top level US government officials. But they released all of this about 15 years ago. And I'm only on tape number three. But so one of the funny exercises in tape number two, so they put basically they get you to, in tape number two, to come, so your mind is active but your body is completely shut down, and they do this by playing this very subtle tone. And binaural beats, people that don't know, is what they play: one frequency in one ear and one slightly different frequency in the other ear, and then the brain somehow fills the gap, and then that's how it brings both sides of the brain into rhythm to allow you to get in the headspace that you need to be at to do this kind of mediumship, or access higher consciousness. Anyway, so in the tape it gets you to you've got an energy conversion box in tape two where you basically put all of your worries, all of your problems, and it is honestly that they're fantastic. And as you go on along the tapes, it you it introduces you to mediumship in a way, that going to different realms and this, that, and the other. But the whole report is fascinating. It's only about 65 pages, but there is an instruction manual that goes with the tapes, which is really useful. But I've had a good experience with them. The only problem is each tape is about 40 minutes. So I need a good 10 minutes to get in the zone before 40 minutes. And I know that's an hour. Then I've got to try and squeeze do you know what it is? I run a business during the day and you just get absolutely caught up, and sometimes the meditation just doesn't happen. And
Mm-hmm.
that's my problem, is consistency. I am becoming more consistent because it's,
I
got
think,
to
do you
be
know,
done.
I think we're all so hard on ourselves. I mean, you do it when you can, and the reason why you're not doing it every night is because you're busy. You've got other
Yeah.
things to do. You know, you don't have the energy to do all of those things and go to the gym and go to work and travel there and back and make the dinner and do the washing. There's a
Yeah.
lot, you
There
know.
is a lot. Yeah.
So
There is
so
a
so
lot.
do it when you can. And I'm going to do it too because it sounds great. And I did just Google it when you said it, and it does look great. So
It's
yeah,
really interesting. It basically gives you the full report goes into explaining what the universe is, and it explains honestly, I'm not even going to attempt to explain it anymore. If you want to check it out, just look for the Heavy Sync tapes. They're on Spotify, because my explanation of them is awful, but it's because I'm still getting to grips with them myself. I wasn't intending to even talk about these tapes yet until I got my head around them a bit more, but they're very good.
okay, I'm going to have a
Um,
look at them. Thank you.
what I wanted to ask you, with your shadow work,
Hmm.
what Cole's Cole Young's work, it sounds like that's kind of something that well, I think a lot of his work is all just absolutely fascinating, isn't it? How do you take uh, his learnings and apply them, or are there any of his teachings that get applied to the shadow work that you do? How
Well,
do you
yeah.
integrate that?
How? Well, I mean, I've taken, well, so first of all, I did a course in Jungian psychology with art therapy back in
Hmm.
2014. And when I did it, I did it in Tipperary. But when I did it, I was thinking they should really make this course online because it's a life changer. And within that course, we talked about alchemy. We did lots of dream work. We did lots of active imagination. We did lots of artwork. So anything where you're expressive, when you're expressing, sorry, you're being expressive, so you're doing anything creative, is to do with your unconscious. You let the unconscious then go, and you let it come out in that way. So
Hmm.
so that there are lots of ways in which you can work with your shadow. Um, and yeah, I mean, one of the first ones is the dream interpretation. And then obviously, I guess, as you know, like any sort of creativity, and then the introspection. The introspection is really important, and at the base of all the shadow work is know thyself. That's the thing. You want to know who you are, because until you start looking into who you are, you're just like an accumulation of all of your experiences and all of your conditioning from your parents, from your school, your friendships, your environment, your country, your religion, blah blah blah.
Hmm.
And so it's like it's a peeling back the layers of conditioning of, okay, so mummy and daddy were a bit dysfunctional and they had such and such impact on me. How am I going to get rid of that so that I end up being who I was? Because if you imagine yourself, Jason, when you were first born, as we all are,
Hmm.
beautiful and without sin, and not tainted by this world, and
Hmm.
anything that's not in the spirit of love is a trauma. Any kind of rejection, any abandonment, any unmet needs, all of those things, they create small scars, and they create new ways for us to move within them as well. And so we end up at this age, in our midlife, with all these complexes and fears and worries, and not able to do such and such, or you spend half your life trying to avoid, I don't know, going to college or whatever it is, because of all the things that have kind of shaped you. So, I mean, it's not for everyone. Not everyone has as much trauma. Not everyone comes into this world at this time having to heal, but a lot of people do. And it's for the people that
Hmm.
that do, that this is a really authentic way of healing, and it's a really authentic way of being, because it means that you have to let go of the mask, you have to let go of the false persona that you show everyone, and you have to show up as yourself. And
I
it does
think
take
it's
time.
fascinating.
Mm.
It resonates. It definitely resonates with me, and I think it's a real. I like the fact it's called chat, and it for me it resonates a lot, and I can. I've probably got honestly a massive filing cabinet from Bristol to Reading of shadows lingering away. But I've done a lot in my years. But do you know what? I do actually feel at this point in my life at the moment, but I don't have too many. But I think it's because I, I I had to learn the really hard way when I started a business that if I let every little thing bother me, oh my God, I'd never sleep at night.
Hmm.
So maybe this isn't a good thing. I've become accustomed to operating in very stressful scenarios,
Hmm.
um, very calmly, but that hasn't always been the way. It's probably still not
Hmm.
a good thing that I'm in stressful scenarios, probably, but that is the world we live in. And
Mm.
I haven't picked an easy job either, but we won't go into that. I sell people to people. Is there any
Oh,
worse
right, you're doing
commodity
the
to sell?
your
Recruitment,
recruitment, yeah.
yeah.
Well,
But
I mean, what might happen is, I mean, for now, it might really suit you for now to do this kind of work. But to be honest, I think most people get to a point in their life. It's usually in their mid 30s
oh,
to
that's me.
40s,
Yes.
mid 30s to mid 40s, where suddenly either there is a loss, or there is a change, or an unexpected thing, or maybe sometimes nothing, or sometimes it's that whatever was making you happy suddenly doesn't make you happy anymore. And if that happens, then that's like the start of, like, I'm not saying it's definitely going to happen, because it sounds like you've actually done a bit of suffering already, and maybe you've overcome it. Maybe you've had your midlife
Yeah.
crisis early. Because,
Yeah, well, yes, well, yes, I think I probably have. Yes, I did a lot of suffering in years 20. Well, I don't want to know. Well, must have been years 22 to 34. Very stressful. So yes, I'm hoping it's a bit more calmer now. But my mum calls me a whirlwind. She said, honestly, you walk into a room, everybody starts running around, and then you walk out again like nothing's happened. So she'd probably say differently. But um, honestly, I've really enjoyed this conversation. And do you know what? I feel like you've mentioned so many interesting things. I feel like we barely even scratched the surface.
yeah.
But that's often, I think you've given people so many useful nuggets that they can go away with. On a lasting final thought from you, then, knowing all you do about shadows and all of your spiritual experience, what advice would you give to people to live a more fulfilling life and not just be a version of themselves that is living all their past experiences and traumas? What final thought can you, or piece of advice can you leave us on today, Caroline?
Find out who you are outside of your conditioning. So, I mean, very, very many people are just they're just an accumulation of their past, and also they are similar to everyone else. And part of shadow work is about finding out who you are as a unique individual. And that is also usually suppressed within the shadow as well, because usually our unique individuality is not always celebrated by our parents or our school, or it doesn't really conform to being in a school, blah, blah, blah. And so there's usually something that's very unique about a person that we're usually a bit ashamed of, that we don't want to show anyone because we want to fit in, and we don't want anyone to reject us. But it's whatever that thing is needs to come out, because that is, we're all going to die. No one gets out alive.
Yes.
We've only got a certain amount of time, and so to bring out that uniqueness is so fulfilling, and it's part of our life purpose. And many people miss that. And I think, when I walk around sometimes, I think it's maybe say they're a bit judgmental, but I see so many people that just look like carbon copies of the other person. This one looks like that one, looks like this one, looks like that one. There are various different types. There's the girl with the tattoos, with the eyelashes, and the this and the that, and you see them all the time. And I think, well, who are you outside of that? So that's who you're looking like, but who are you? Can I see who you are? And so I would always say, just find out who you are inside and bring that out. And it's a bit scary, but I think that's God's gift to each of us, is that uniqueness that we have.
I think that was beautiful. Caroline, thank you so much for coming on to the Soul Sync. If people want to find out more about you, do you have a website?
I've got something like a website. It's a sales page where I do my tarot and Reiki. I do tarot online if anyone's interested, if they're very far from me. Otherwise, I'm in Hertfordshire, so you can come in and see me if you
Okay, well,
like.
we will put the website address in the show notes, so
Thank you
just
very
go there
much.
and have a look. Thank you so much for coming on. I have truly loved it.
Thanks, Jason. I've really enjoyed it. Thanks for inviting me.